Good evening.
Hey, Steve, how are you doing?
Excellent.
Good.
Another day in paradise.
Yeah.
Hey
Good
there.
evening. Oh, we got just waiting for the mayor. I'm waiting to see whether he's on here to admit.
I'm going to see if I can plug in and get faster internet.
Okay. Yeah, you're moving in like the Matrix.
Yeah. Darn it. Huh. I don't know if this laptop has that ability to plug in with the normal. Wait, what is that? That seems like it. Nope, still jerky.
Not as bad though.
Oh, good.
And there's Mayor. Yeah, no, it's much better. And there's Mayor Sheets.
Oh, hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, good. Oops. Sorry, screwing around with settings.
I know that's it's the internet.
Not the internet. Okay. Ding, ding, ding.
Sorry about these two white streaks of light at the top. I don't know how to change that.
It's like you've got a beam of sunlight shining on you.
Oh, there we go. All right. Okay.
And thank you for letting this one be a Zoom meeting. Appreciate it.
Well, it's an empty room as usual.
Should we begin?
You may, yes. I think we're all present.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. And welcome, Councillor Williams, to your first official personnel meeting, right?
Thank you.
Congratulations.
As a committee member. So I have been looking through the email that you sent, Steve.
Yes.
Responses to the mayor. I think that there was some miscommunication. I misunderstood because when I read about the city recorder part, that was in the staffing functions and assessment, but it was not included in the position description that you provided. So we had adapted the job posting based on the position description, not the full functions and assessment document that you shared. So, and sorry to jump ahead. I mean, I'm kind of just, this was the very first thing that caught my attention. So it sounds like we need to revise the position description to include the city recorder function, right?
Right. So this kind of goes to my third item there. Oh, sorry. This thing. Okay. As long as it lets me pop back in. I don't know what it is, because after about 15 minutes of that, it stabilizes. So we're going to have to go back in our Wayback Machine to 2018, because we're now encountering exactly the same issue that encountered the city and Rick Honbaum back then. We have, when you pay somebody in our system, it isn't like there's a bucket of money for the city administrator and a bucket of money for this or that. It all has to come out of the different funds. And so one of the issues then is how do you justify which fund things come out of?
Okay.
The auditors have been very, very clear. We have very specific buckets of money and they need to be used for those purposes. So, for instance, the reason why I know Councillor Linder, you suggested that a year or so ago says, well, Steve, you should be being paid more, and you gave a salary range. And I said, no, 97,610 is what you can do. Well, it was based upon the fact that up till Chuck Cross being here and now becoming, part of the operating team, I was your water operator and wastewater operator. I mean, my name is in the logbooks as much or more than Mark's has been. So you can justify, and the auditors and the USDA, which also have audited our this distribution, agree. If you're doing the work, you can get paid from it.
Mhm.
So that's how you can afford me and what you're paying. So the next city administrator cannot pull from those buckets.
Right.
So you don't have the same dollar amounts available to you in general administration. General administration is basically our property taxes. And part of that property tax, over half of it goes to pay our general obligation bonds.
Mhm.
And the other part of it's used for things like law enforcement. And yes, we do pick up things, because things like what I'm doing right now is general administration. It's not water or sewer. When people answer the phones to answer questions about planning or general things or prepare agendas and all that, clearly that's general administration. So we can say, yeah, you can come out of that bucket there. Yeah. See, I can move my hands up. Darn it. It doesn't want me to move my hands around. I'll stay quiet. So when you start looking at it from that perspective, then your dollar amount that you have for a city administrator needs to be balanced by the duties that they have. So if they're primarily doing general administration work, doing the planning and all that comes out of the general administration bucket, which you have a limited amount of money for. I mean, your only recourse with that is to raise taxes, to go out and get a option levy for more revenue to fund City Hall, essentially. So otherwise, you're very limited in our audit this year. I mean, what we just went through, I mean, we finally got up to the point where we disentangled everything that was tangled up, I think, probably deliberately back in the day, but it answers, now that I've uncovered everything and gone through it all, there's a reason why the water plant wasn't being taken care of, for instance, is because the money was being used elsewhere. And of course, that's not what we wanted to do.
Right.
We want to make sure that our water and sewer and all that keeps the money. And as the auditor points out, that's what promotes transparency in government, which is what the state of Oregon looks at when they review our budgets and our audits each year. So with that in mind, the question is, how much money do you really have to pay this individual? And what duties are you going to ask them to do? So city recorder has always been that function, primarily so that it ticks the thing in the general administration box. It's also the one that takes the most experience to do. Michelle Eldridge has said it's about 5 years to get to a point where you can start doing it correctly. She typically will bring someone on board as a deputy. So Karen, in case you didn't, Michelle was the association president of the Oregon City Recorders Association. She is probably one of the most experienced city recorders in the state. So that's when I mention her, that's why she kind of sets the bar for city administrators. So the city administrator here has filled in that role, the finance role, the planning role, as much roles as you possibly can, so you don't have to pay other people for it. So therefore you can use the money that you would contract out or do elsewhere to pay the city administrator. So that's how it's worked. With me, it was different because I came into you with already this knowledge of the water system, which I could pull legitimately from those specific buckets. And
Got it. Okay,
so that's really kind of, I just wanted to make sure you understood why that paragraph, it was keeping words short, but that's the explanation behind it.
So, okay, so how do we afford, I mean, can we have an executive session with the full council and move some funds around so that we can have a city administrator and the city recorder function? Because obviously we need all those things. Like what is the next step for us so that we can move forward with getting your position posted?
Well, the next step would be, one, I think that we probably internally need to look at our distribution. I developed a distribution workbook that assigns percentages for each of our different funds. So the city administrator pulls X amount of percentage out of one, out of two. So one of the first things to do is probably look, and I gave this distribution workbook to Dawn. I unlocked it. We have the auditors wanted to make sure that the section with distributions was locked so that no other staff, could play with it.
Sure.
Which
Right.
is not an issue with Dawn, but it's a control that the auditors
Right.
wanted us to have.
Right.
To put in place, and that's a legitimate control. So I gave her a copy of the workbook, and I wanted her to review it and review the percentages to make sure, now that she has had 2 years under her belt in this position, as well as now several months of working with an assistant in the office and how that works, what exactly is the percentage of time. I'm doing the same thing to review to see how we might use maybe a different tactic, which I used in the first few years of this while we were trying to unpack what it cost for a gallon of water.
Right.
What I did was I did something the auditors don't like, but what I use at the Council of Governments, which is use what's called indirect. So I made the water fund and enterprise fund, but I said, okay, this is a standalone fund, and what would it cost this fund to contract, so to speak, with city staff to run it? Okay, that's another way of asking it.
Right.
Nonprofits, and I'll say the Council of Governments use this. They're a state of Oregon. They're a 190 ORS 192, and of course that created years of vitriol between all of us trying to figure out who was charging who and why.
And you said that was called an indirect fund?
It's called indirect. And indirect is a way of charging a fund for managing it, so to speak, or for taking care of it. Now, the auditors, like I said, we had to go away from that. They thought that was not transparent for the entire organization, but it might be something that fits for a city administrator, for instance. So rather than do it for everybody, because everyone right now, we're all direct charges to those. We take our time and we do a direct charge. There might be a way of taking a larger percentage out of some of these other groups, but still be transparent about it and meet the auditor's needs. So that's what I tasked on with, is to help me kind of unpack that a little bit so that we can understand how much money can we really put to this position. Otherwise, you don't have the ability in our budget to move money around. There is not a lot of money in this budget. It just isn't. If you don't raise taxes, then you don't have the funds. The funds that we do have come from our water system, from our water, or from our utility bills. That's the majority of money that you have direct control over. But again, it has to be dedicated and targeted for the operation of those systems. It can't just be used. You can't take it to use it for something else, which we know coming into 4 years ago, that's what was being done. And that's why the water system and wastewater system were neglected, is because the money was being used elsewhere. So anyway, that's the gist of it. So the next part after we do that is that we would need to sit down, and this might have to, if we go over 10%, where our projections are over 10%, any fund, whether it be more revenue or more expense, then by law, we have to do a supplemental budget. We believe at this point, the supplemental is probably, in general administration, we're probably going to exceed the amount in there, particularly since the law enforcement just told us that there's going to be an $8,000 increase.
Right.
In that. I got that information last Friday, from Sheriff Van Arsdal when he came visited. So those are some questions that we'll have to look at. And there's other tactics too that we can use. For instance, we may have to make sure that all the people coming to us for planning get charged way more than they currently are, which might slow things down a little bit, or people might gripe about it. But if we don't have full-time people on staff, then that's what you have to do, or to be able to do those functions. Or if you do have a city administrator that is a planner, then you need to help, those funds need to help pay for them. So those are some other strategies. So at this point, my suggestion is that at the work session, we do look at the different strategies and how these things are and what the city needs. I think that could be an open discussion. You don't necessarily have to, go into the nitty-gritty details, but it does have to be discussed so that it can go to council with it. Ultimately, although you may feel as, I don't know, in terms of negotiating with an individual over salary, that can be protected under executive session. In terms of posting a position and the details and the salary range and all that, that's not executive session, that's open session. So at some point you will have to let the world know what you're doing and how you can afford it and all of that. But when you get to the individual and you want to negotiate a contract with them, that could be protected under executive session.
I don't know that we have the not convenience, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I don't know that we have the luxury of waiting until the work session, right? Like, I mean, can we have an executive session before then? Like, I'm concerned that there are so many little details about getting this job posted that we weren't aware of, that not because you didn't tell us, but because we haven't done this before, right? And like, we don't understand. Like, you kindly came in and rescued Monroe 5 years ago. We have not, or at least I have not, done this process before, and I didn't realize how many T's and I's would need to be addressed.
How many hoops you have to go through?
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah. How many hoops we have to jump through?
There's so many hoops, and
Yeah.
like, even the fact that we can only use the city application from the website, like that, I don't understand that. I don't know if that's because that's the application that council created way back in the day. There's just so many things I just didn't, like, I also have not done recruitment in an HR role for about 6 or 7 years. So I'm pretty rusty with this.
Our application has been approved by CIS and the USDA.
Okay,
Okay.
got it.
We have with that. There's other entities that have their fingers in everything we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have to abide by what they would like us to do. And so our application form is that, and there's, you're always free to put a supplemental with different things, but our application is actually, and ask them to do a cover letter as well, explaining why they want the position and why they feel they're ready for it. Then the supplemental can go into any other level of detail that you want. And you can even have them come in and do some sort of assessment as well. Those are all things that you could do in addition to your application.
Okay.
But our application has been approved by council, which was approved by our CIS, which was just recently approved by the USDA in their audit with us.
Okay. Yeah, we won't touch the application then. We'll just
That's fine. That's an easy one.
reviewed and
That's an easy one.
yeah.
It's just the salary part is hanging us up.
Your salary, unfortunately, at this point, you can't advertise it until you know that you have the money to spend on it. And that can only come through council approval, and probably through some kind of budget process, either a supplemental or something else to arrive at the funds, or you're going to have to scale back what your salary range is. I mean, Onbom was only offered 78,000 something to 81,000. That's all the city had at that time. And frankly, that's without the water component. That's really, you have between 80 and 90,000 now. That's really all you have.
That leads me into my next question is, how did we determine the salary range for this? Did we do a salary study?
I did a salary study. I'm a compensation analyst for my job. And so I've been doing salary studies every 2 years.
Okay.
So the second part is that most cities that are under 1,000 people in Oregon don't have a city administrator. They have a city recorder. And those that do are in the $80,000 to $100,000 range and for a town of 723, it's incredibly difficult. So you just simply don't have the tech space yet
Right,
to afford
right.
that. Once
Not
you
yet.
get to about 1,200 people, yes, you do, but not
Yeah.
723. You just don't have enough general funds is what I'm saying. You don't have enough, what we call Fund 100 or, property tax revenue to deal with it.
Right.
The problem
Well,
is that we don't have the money for the job that we need, because the job, even without the water
Right.
plant stuff, it's
Yeah,
a
that's
lot
it.
of different roles still.
Agreed.
Just
Yeah,
with
there's
the-
many hats that are being worn for
Yeah,
this position.
not
And
including the water operations, like just the administrative stuff. I mean, like when I did this salary study last year and I talked with a few different towns about our size, also a little bit bigger and then much bigger.
Mhm.
The smaller ones were all paying their people at least like $90,000 to $100,000.
Mhm.
Right.
And they
Yeah.
had fewer hats that they were wearing than
Yep.
Steve has been. So it's like, I just don't know how we get from,
Yeah, it's hard because, you were talking about the different funds and how with public work, the water piece is being paid for the public works fund. If we're not going to have our city administrator do that moving forward, then now what?
Right.
We can't use that money. So now
Right. You can't use it, but on the other flip side of the coin, it does go towards the maintenance and operation and care and upkeep and improvement of your water fund. It's
Right.
just, which is what those funds were intended on. Otherwise, if you're not going to do that, then you reduce people's water bill. You reduce the utility bill and say, yeah, we're not going to do this. So you can pay less, but we know that doesn't work. That's not sustainable going forward. So the second part of this is we have these different things that need to be filled. Certainly right now, I will say in the next 5 months, I am going to probably personally approve several major planning projects.
Right.
They're on my desk right now. I have the 23 unit. I've got another 26 unit. I just talked with Serge this afternoon.
Okay.
So things are moving quickly
Right.
in that regard. So one of the questions that might come up is if we unbundle the city administrator position a little bit, because yes, the city administrator does wear a lot of hats, and we've talked about that a great deal, and I certainly know that firsthand. Trying to keep, and sometimes keeping all the hats straight. That's not always easy too on a daily
Right.
basis. What hat am I wearing at the moment?
Mhm.
So one function is planning, and that's a thing, but you can also, there's lots of companies out there that do planning. So that's also an option. So perhaps, are we looking, and the other question is for a town our size, if you start looking at different options for utilizing like engineers, engineering firms that do some of the public works function. Our staff aren't qualified engineers, so we have to hire people to come out and do the heavy duty work.
Right.
That's just the way it is. ODOT just informed us that we have to fix that manhole everyone's been griping about just north of the that I have to avoid too, going out of town, and the mayor does, and everyone. So now that pothole, right? You gotta jink one way, then jink the other way to avoid the pot. Well, they want us to fix the deeper one. So unfortunately, I did my best, but it is our responsibility to fix it. So can my staff go out in the middle of the road and do flag waving and everything to protect themselves in the middle of Highway 99?
we don't want that.
We are going to spend $5,000 and have a company that can flag and do all that and take care of it quickly for us. So those are the kinds of things maybe we need to look at as we unbundle things.
Mhm.
The previous administration wanted to do everything in-house. You can't do it.
No.
As
Yeah.
a result, over time, people started wearing 100 hats. And it wasn't just the city administrator. City administrator wasn't here. It was Barb and Verna that had to wear 100 hats.
Yeah.
Then Dave Williams that had to wear 100. Then Tracy Jensen. mean, all these individuals I've known from 2001, and they all had to wear, and it was all sore point with them, because they were being told that they had to run the city, but they weren't being paid to run the city. And so maybe we start unpacking this a little bit. And if you do that, maybe some other options might come up. For instance, do we need someone that maybe has maybe more of a general managerial aspect that knows how to outsource some of these critical things? The most critical thing that you have here, someone understands municipal finance, fund-based accounting. That's probably the most, but still, council of governments have taken on that role for Monroe in the past. COG did, so did LCOG. What they do is set up a system of controls, and you basically relay to them what's necessary. They prepare the papers and all the final things. They represent you in an audit, and you don't have to worry about it internally. They provide counsel with reports and that type of thing. So I'm not saying that that's what you should do. I'm just simply pointing out that this is what has happened in Monroe and other small towns that I've been familiar in Lynn, Benton, and Lincoln counties for 20 years. I mean, other people have taken over because small towns often don't have those resources to do that.
Yeah, I was thinking of Lincoln County in particular, your peer over in Newport and LC, I think.
Yeah, LC would be probably more. I know the last mayor of Newport did not do well. I was going to say that the city administrator over there had one heck of a, and they still haven't figured out. They had a heck of a crisis, a para-crisis over there with social media that dissolved their town, and they still haven't come out of it completely. Baker City, the same thing. I mean, both mayors did. What a mess. Thank you, Mayor Sheets. You are so much, so much a breath of fresh air compared to a lot of other towns. But anyway, and as a result of that, maybe you're looking. We said we wanted an experienced person to step in and do this. Maybe we look at someone with supervisory experience that understands these things, but also is willing to use Monroe for 3 or 4 or 5 years to learn the trade. And maybe that's not the best thing in the world, but if you couple that with professional planners, professional engineers, and that type of thing, contracting with other cities to be, when needed, like just an intergovernmental agreement for superintendent services, so to speak. So if Mark has a serious question, he can call like a Chuck Schultz, who will tell him exactly what needs to be done with his 25 years of experience.
I don't know that we want to outsource city planning, though. I feel like that's a really major component of your position, and it's only going to get more significant. Like, if we have to tease apart that job description and the functions that you sent to us into maybe 2 smaller bite-sized pieces instead of 3, it seems to me like city planner and city planner and city recorder are probably the most important parts, right? And then the finance fund management part could be outsourced to LCOG or COG. Does that make sense, or am I off base there?
I would say that the city administrator or city manager is the CEO of your city. That is the most important thing they have to do, period. City recorder probably falls right behind it, because that's the only position that you are absolutely required by law to have for that. And third would be planning. And again, planning is so technical and takes so much time. I mean, most planners will be like an associate planner for 20 years before they become a senior planner. And that's reality. It takes a long time to get to a point where you have that proficiency in a person. Jim Menard, who was prior to Rick Honbaum, was a professional planner, and he'd been a professional planner for 20 years. So he knew planning extremely well. I worked with him when he was at Adair Village, Philomath. He was at the Council of Governments. He was a good planner. And sometimes you get city administrators that come in with that background. And, for instance, you hire somebody, you might have a planner who's been associate planner for 15 or 16 years, has been through all these different towns, knows everything. And they know full well they're going to be 5 more years before they can retire and get the bigger bucks that they believe they deserve, and they do. But because, you choose your rate, you choose your fate, they got into a profession that takes a very long time, and maybe they're ready to take the jump. Harrisburg was in that same position. They hired a planner from Corvallis, a young planner, been around for several years, but he jumped out of that and got into the city of Harrisburg's role, and was very instrumental in helping Michelle bring their planning up to speed. That was John. So
Maybe John wants to come to Monroe now.
so if and so those are the things that you see are the planners that want to get out of their position, because they know small towns, they know the planning function, they know the municipal, they know how to do finance because they've had to work with it. They know grants.
Right.
They know the city recorder because it's not that far off from being a planner, because you're involved in that legal aspect of it. They're not superintendents for public works, but they have an idea of that. So that again is somebody who might be going from an associate planner, which is in the $60,000 to $80,000 range, into the next level up. So that's another option as well. They grow themselves either to retirement, or they decide this is great, maybe I'm ready for a city of Corvallis now. But you get their talent for that period of time.
So because the city planner role is secondary, even though we're on the brink of growth and we need that expertise, because the city planner role is not the primary, it's not our biggest hurdle right now. We need somebody to manage the city like you've been doing.
Finance. I think that finance is
Right.
probably your biggest thing. You need someone that understands municipal accounting, which is fund-based accounting. So they understand that it's a different animal than for-profit accounting.
I have
Same
a really quick
terms.
question
So
that
if
may
we
be
were
kind
to-
of a stupid question, actually. But if we did go that route where we were going to, contract with professional organizations such as planning organizations or
Mhm.
whatever, what funds would those monies come out of?
Typically what you do is they will have two parts to it. One, they will probably want some level of retainer. And so you would pay that retainer out of general administration. The
I'm sorry,
second
out of the which
part
one?
that like a
General
retainer.
Retaining.
Okay.
And then the second part of that is that people that pay their planning fees pay for their services, so that the people that wanting the planning for the city, for instance, Surge and Pacific National Development, or Brownstone Development, or SGS, or North Sandiam Paving, when they want to come do a project, they're paying for your engineering, they're paying your engineering services, and they're paying for in other words, all the engineering and inspections and all the things that come with that as on behalf of the city. And the second part of that is that they pay the planning fees and things that are necessary. And so basically upfront, you typically go with an RFP for those services. You select somebody. So in our case, you'd have an engineer of record, and that's actually an official title. You could have a planner of record too. And they, just like we have a judge of record working, Judge Blake. And so in Judge Blake's case, he doesn't charge, he only charges us when he shows up, which is great. Others will want to have a little bit of money each month to make sure that they're, that they have a retainer, just like you might pay an attorney and a retainer. And some don't. Some just say, we'll do this, and here's what our fees are for us doing that. And then you simply pass those on to your clients. And that's not unusual to do that. So now you have professional planning services available to you, and you have professional engineering services available to you. And the city's not paying a whole lot for it, if anything.
So say we were to post the position tomorrow, I know that we have to get the budget piece figured out, but if we were to post the position tomorrow, the position description should prioritize city finance using fund-based accounting is what the critical knowledge is there. Supervision over staff. And then the city recorder, can we include that in the
Yes.
position description, or is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you would need to, they need,
We're getting the PD correct before we post it, since it seems like
Right.
I totally misunderstood the assignment. before. Um,
And then as,
Okay.
and then you can add, then you would add planning as a, you know, knowledge of Oregon, knowledge of planning, Oregon land use laws and that type of thing, as part of their knowledge base, and the fact that they'll be working either, and you're going to get different with that knowledge, you're going to get different people. You're going to get people to apply, like I said, that will be planners. I mean, that is planners, lawyers, rarely you're going to get a public works person, but Pat Hare and myself, Pat Hare Adair, he came from a public works background, so it's not out of the realm. But those are kind of typically, and then former city administrators, people that are looking to move, say, from Eastern Oregon to the Valley, maybe worked in Cove. I just talked with the Cove City recorder, but
Okay.
Cove is just outside of Baker City. They're trying to understand how we do salary studies. So I gave them your last stuff and how you did it. And we had a personnel committee and they did salary studies for us. But they were grateful, but because they're also growing a little bit and wanting to know how this works. I think they'll be getting ready to get a city administrator in the next couple of years. But yeah, from people from different parts of the state that want to move on will come here. And try their hand or get closer to the bigger cities. Because a lot of folks that are, say, in the middle of their careers, as oft has been said, city administrators will typically, in the old days, you might get a city administrator like Chris Martin over in Sweet Home that might stay in Sweet Home for 15 or 20 years. They grew up there, they were the coach there, and then became city manager. But pretty soon, you know, they either want to move on or maybe things have changed enough inside the town that it's not what it was and they wish to move on. About 5 years is your city manager, city administrator, and this is nationally. It's not just Oregon.
Okay.
So in 5 years, you can expect to have another person. That's the other reason why I mentioned to you about somewhere along the line, you need to start seriously looking at the city manager form of government, because what that does is stabilize your city manager position. And it's easier then to say, okay, thank you so much. We'll have a going away party. You're on to your next job. And now the next person comes into more or less a standardized position that they can come into. It's not, they know it's going to be this way. They know what's going to be happening. They know what their relationship is with everybody. And it makes it more standardized for that administrator to come in and do what the goals of council are without feeling as though, you know, in every 2 years, you know, something might change.
Okay.
And so it helps stabilize that. Then you can go through that process every 4 to 6 years of anticipating that there might be another city, but it won't matter.
Yeah.
At that point, you'll get a new person who'll come up with fresh ideas, new energy, and they'll be moving the city, you know, forward. And that's what you want to build towards.
Okay, thank you. So should we have an executive session to discuss the supplemental budget before the work session? Like I mean,
a supplemental budget at this point, we are planning to have the supplemental budget. Well, we have to give notice of it. Number one, it's a big deal. It's a public thing. So at one level, I can talk with Dawn about how close we can get to this, because we have to come up with several. It's a big push, is what I'm trying to say, and we have to give 30 days notice.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Okay, so before we have it, now that doesn't mean that it has to be at a council meeting. You know, we can post it 30 days and then have a special council meeting specifically for the purpose of deliberating on a supplemental budget. And that may be what we need to do. Is I need to sit down with Dawn, work on those distribution things and come up with what we need to do. If I don't need to do that, if it looks like we might be able to stay, then I can give you a range.
A range would be great.
A range that we can work with.
Yeah.
And then if all we're doing is changing distributions, we're not changing the funds, and we don't go over or under by a significant amount, then we can pass that by resolution at a council meeting. So,
That would be
um,
great.
Yeah,
and
that'd be
again,
preferred.
and that could also be at a special, it doesn't have to be at a regular council
Okay,
meeting.
that'd be good.
So
Okay.
I'm, I understand the urgency. I'm just trying to see how we can, I'll just have to sit down with Dawn this week and see what we can do to make this, work faster.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm having such a hard time hearing. I've got my volume turned all the way up and I think
Oh.
whenever it's not you,
Oh,
it's this laptop. Whenever I have to have it plugged in and charging, the volume, the speakers suck is one thing.
well, we can hear you very nicely.
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Oh, good. I'm very glad for that. Thank you. Okay, so I guess we will go back, not back to the drawing board necessarily, but we will work on the position description a little bit
Okay.
more.
And,
Refine it, include the city recorder piece, prioritize city finance and supervision and city recording functions, and then the planning with a specialty in Oregon law or Oregon land use laws, knowledge is helpful. Experience is preferred, but I guess we can't expect everything, right?
I would say at this point that you're probably looking for a bright, energetic individual who has some experience in government, but is looking for maybe their next position,
Yeah,
moving up in their organization and ready for that challenge. But they've already demonstrated some supervisory capability, maybe in their current job or maybe at a previous position. That they can come in and help you move the city forward. But at the same time, make sure that they're the responsible, like we say, the direct responsible charge, the DRC for city staff.
Okay.
I have another question, and this may be more applicable to you, Counselor Linder, but do we have to include, for transparency reasons, the pay scale in the state of Oregon? I think we do, don't we?
Well,
Gosh, I'm not sure about the state of Oregon. My job is actually Washington based.
Okay.
But I think it's a best practice. And with the Oregon Equal Pay Act, I think it's a good idea to do it. We're a publicly funded entity. I think we should personally.
I think, like I'm aligned with what Steve is saying. I think we're looking for a very specific type of individual that is going to be, has some experience, but is looking for that next step. And I just think that pay is not going to be, it's going to be very enticing. And I'm a little concerned that it's high, although I know you've done the study, but if we start to contract out with professional organizations and all that, then maybe that pay isn't necessarily reflective.
Yeah, I mean, if we're contracting out some of the stuff that we've been having Steve do, then yeah, I think the salary could be reduced, but
Right.
I think, we've gotten really lucky to have Steve, who's been doing a lot of things for
Absolutely.
us that somebody normally wouldn't do. And also I'm a little bit concerned that going forward, we might get what we pay for. So, I'm open to, I think we can discuss it. I'm just, I would say we should not go any lower than 100 personally.
yeah, I don't know. I think we can at least come up with somewhere between $80,000 and $90,000. But at this point, I'm speculating. I really do I only had about 2 hours this afternoon to look at it. And then I got interrupted with everything else, which is hard when I'm in the office. But I did ask Dawn, I gave her the information, and we will look at it tomorrow and start coming up with a game plan of how this might work. I will also reach out to some of the planning organizations that I've worked with that are providing us with providing their clients with professional services, but are working directly with me, and see how they might fit in this picture. Because I think that would be great.
I think, yeah, and I think the reason I landed at the salary that I did because of that survey is we don't have any true comps. Like our closest comps are
That's true.
towns that are 1,000 people or maybe 900 people, but they've got a larger staff, and so they've got more people. Or it like the job description doesn't really equate to what Steve's been doing because Steve does 3 or 4 different things. So it's
the last job description I saw that was similar would be Maupin. If you know where that is, that's a neat little town on the Deschutes. They were advertising about the same size actually as Monroe.
Mhm.
Their salary rate was 80,000 for that. I don't know if they found anybody. Burns was the same way a few years ago. It took them forever to find someone. And I think they
You'd have
did.
to, it'd be really hard to find someone to move to Burns for 80,000 a year. Like,
Yeah,
there's a
yeah,
whole
it would be.
different retention issue there.
It would be. I mean, I love Burns. My home there is the Rory and Ryan Inns. People ask me if I camp out in the desert. I said, yeah, I camp at the Best Westerns. So I know Burns really well, but yeah, it'll be hard to entice somebody out there unless you really like the desert and like that climate. Much more enticing, I think, to bring someone to Monroe. And again, you might find someone from Oregon State who's been working or, that are passing through Monroe. And just like I did for almost 40 years, all of a sudden stop and say, hey, there's a small town here. This is kind of cool.
It's a cute town. I think that is attractive to a lot of people. But the other thing is we don't have any rentals in Monroe for somebody to move into. So they would have to rent in Corvallis or Eugene, which are Corvallis
or Junction City or Harrisburg.
So how are they going to afford a living wage as a city manager on 80,000 a year?
Even under 100,000, yeah, you're not going to find anyone to afford a house with the current mortgage rates. It's just not.
Right.
Or even a rental that's reasonable. Like $1,500 a month for a studio is kind of crazy for somebody who's a city manager.
It is.
I mean, for anybody.
And that's what Burns faced with as well. I think finally somebody over there with Teague, that was associated with Teague Motors, which went out of business because their Mr. Teague died several years ago, but they actually donated a house to the city for the use of the city manager. So because there wasn't anything available.
A president's residence.
Yeah, exactly. So it was nice res. It was a beautiful home, but that's the only way they could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think Councilor Linder, I think to your point, I think, going back over the PD is good. We will and staff start looking at how this works within our budget so that we can present it to council as soon as possible.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you. I mean, we're obviously behind schedule, and it's because I didn't realize how long this process might take. I thought it would be, and it's not because it's not an important position. It's hugely important and invaluable. I didn't think that there were so many other caveats with it. I thought it would be like posting another job.
Right. And unfortunately, so many people, like I mentioned, the USDA, state of Oregon, our auditors, every one of them have their ideas and understanding of what small cities need to do. Yeah. And, so I call up Junction City and Harrisburg and we've been doing that for the last couple of years. So, it's like, great, but again, that's particularly when you are constrained in what money you can use.
Yeah.
For this position, it's really, really hard unless, in my case, you can pull out of the water in the sewer buckets. Otherwise, it becomes somewhat unaffordable unless you're willing to go for an option levy or something else to help pay for it, which I'm hoping with all these different subdivisions and everyone who wants to come to town, you are going to get closer to that 1,000, 1,100 person mark. And then hopefully the property taxes then will help you maybe in the next recruitment go up to the next level. And that's what all cities do. You're just at the beginner's level, I guess, Monroe.
Woohoo.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this has been helpful and insightful and maybe a little bit discouraging, but I'm inspired and motivated. But not discouraging for a bad reason. Just, we'll go back to the drawing board a little bit.
It's just more, like you said, I take it for granted how complex and convoluted it is. And so at times I don't always remember that everyone else doesn't see the same level of convolutedness.
Yeah, you're in it.
I'm in
all
it
day.
all day long, and staff are in it, and we all have to sit down sometimes and figure out how to work this around. And usually it's with lots of conversation, lots of phone calls to other people to figure it out. But for this particular position is a little more difficult because we only really have one bucket to pull from
Yeah.
significantly,
So would we be able to, can we as a committee revise the PD and send it to you? And would you be able to give us not real-time feedback? I know you're busy, but like, feedback over the course of the next week or so, or next
Oh,
2
yes.
weeks, just so we can dial it in and
I'll
Wait till
I'll
the
look
next
at it.
meeting.
I'll look at it and give you immediate feedback on it. This is
Awesome.
important. I think it's important
Yeah.
for all of us. And we've done such a great job over the last 4 years. Let's make the next 4 or 5 even better. And so it's
Yeah.
important to me as well.
Thank you, Steve. and thank you
So
for your help.
I actually found poking around right while you guys are talking. So the city of Bay City, they're looking for a city manager. I don't know how big Bay City is. I haven't looked.
It's one person larger because that's where Mr. Terrell just went to.
Oh, that's right. Well, aside from him,
They've grown by one.
they've grown by one. Yeah. Well,
Lucky
they have a
for the
salary
city
range of,
administrator there.
yeah. Well, they have a city, the salary range on this position, and I'm looking at the description. It's kind of similar to what we're talking about modifying
Mm.
ours to, is 93 to 125. So, I mean, I could forward this to everybody.
comparable.
Yeah, I would appreciate that if you could.
Yeah.
Yeah,
of
thank
course.
you. Thank you, Mayor, for finding that.
Yeah, just poking around.
And
Yeah.
then Steve, I don't mean to push, but because there is some urgency to this, when do you think we could expect to hear back from you and your team on next steps after they've had a chance to review and kind of put together?
Yeah, the
numbers?
distribution workbook.
I would say at this point that we're probably looking at about this same time next week.
Okay.
About a week. I mean, we have to run different scenarios, and then I think we probably need to contact probably our auditor and other, just to make sure that we're on the right track and we give you the right information.
Okay.
One of the big issues is that by statute, we cannot spend money we do not have.
Yep.
So we want to make sure that the information we give you, because that's basically one of the few things that councils are personally liable for, is the money. So we want to make sure you get the right information.
Yeah,
Thank you.
understood.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Oh, joy.
All right. Well, guess we've got some work to do still.
All right. Yeah, we do too. And I already got Dawn on it. So we'll meet tomorrow morning on a preliminary and get a game plan together and get going on this.
Okay,
Sounds
thank you,
good.
Steve. Hold on. Thank you as well.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you,
will.
everyone.
I will.
Thank you,
All
Council
right. Have a
Williams
good
and
evening,
Mayor.
everyone.
Yeah, thanks, folks. Nice. This is actually very nice. I like this. This is, the screen could fill up with a few more people. We just do everything by Zoom.
Yeah.
Right, well, yeah.
I
But
prefer
you still have
Zoom.
to drive home, so you need to be
There we
careful.
go. I will.
Yeah, be careful on the road.
And Mr. Mayor, I'll look at the things tomorrow and see whether or not we have a 2-hour delay. Staff are
Okay.
prepared one way or another. The roads really weren't bad on the valley floor.
No,
Apparently,
fine.
but kind of the same scenario. We'll see what happens.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
All right,
All
have a
right,
nice
Everyone,
evening.
thank you all.
Good evening.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.